complete, right? The other type of grief is known as disenfranchised grief. Disenfranchised grief. So this enfranchised grief occurs when the loss is experienced and cannot be acknowledged openly, right? So there are people who are experiencing loss, right? And then they can't open up to tell their family or their loved ones, because probably they were advised not to go ahead to do whatever they were doing, and then they ignored all advice, right? So they don't want people to know the situation they are going through. And this kind of grief is very serious, because if you don't open up, sometimes you may end up committing suicide, or you may end up taking your own life with a disenfranchised grief. And it's similar to the situation I gave, where sometimes some people who are going through broken heart do not want to open up to people, but they will be in their room and then they will cry, and then sometimes they will refuse to eat, right? Their parents will want to find out, or family members will want to find out from them why they are not eating, but they can't really disclose it to them, right? So they will sometimes they will have to isolate, lock themselves up and all that, right? So this is what we term as disenfranchised grief, grieving that you can't disclose it to other people. Dysfunctional grief is when you are not able to go through the normal process of grieving, right? So sometimes the grieving takes long, and then instead of you overcoming it gradually, it's become more intense, right? To the extent that some people will ignore taking care of their personal hygiene. It can even bring about some physical conditions like high BP, etc., right? So in this process, we term it as dysfunctional grief. Through the grieving process, sometimes people first become shocked, and then there's shock and disbelief, right? So what it means is that when you break the news to them, sometimes they get shocked, especially when they are not expecting the person to die, because the person is young, or the person was somebody who is strong. And then especially people will say that, oh, I was chatting with the person just yesterday, right? So it's difficult to believe what you are saying. So the people can react by being shocked or showing a sign of disbelief. And then again, people can become angry. People can bargain. They will ask God why they have to take the person at that point in time, right? Why will God do that? Somebody who is providing, who is taking care of or sponsoring me, how can you take him at this time, right? So there are ways people respond to the death of a loved one. Then finally, there's reintegration. That is the last aspect of the grieving. So the reintegration is where survivors or families begin to reorganize his or her life, and then accept the reality of the loss, right? So gradually you have to reorganize yourself, and then you have to accept the reality of the loss. So what is loss? Loss is an absence of something that is desired. Yes. So there are times we will have to lose things that are dear to us, right? So when the thing is no more, that is what we term as loss. We can have an actual loss where probably your mother is dead. So everybody knows that your mother is dead, and then you will be crying, and people will be consoling you. People will be crying with you and all that. That is what we term as an actual loss. But there's another loss that is termed as perceived loss. Perceived loss is experienced by one person that cannot be verified by the other. So sometimes we've gone through some loss that we are experiencing that nobody is aware of, right? And then most of the time we don't really want to disclose such kind of loss, because people will blame us for for our actions, right? So this kind of loss is what we term as perceived loss. Then the final loss is known as anticipatory loss. Anticipatory loss is experienced before the loss occurs, right? So sometimes you know that definitely whatever happened, you are going to lose something, but you can't do anything about it. So sometimes